What's going on, Soul Tribe? And welcome to Alchemist Astrology. Justin here, and bringing another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Mercury in Scorpio in the third place. Now, when we go over the significators of Mercury, we got a whole list of things to that we could cover. But the just to get a general idea of Mercury, can deal with our education. It can be, Mercury was the deliverer of forethought and of intelligence. It's how you can think of it as affecting our communication style. Could even represent either like it was thought to be like the Lord of Brothers and of younger children. So that maybe this could be something that really kind of ties in with this third place topic. Mercury deals with like a plethora of different occupations and things. So it's the stuff that the skills that we can, our displays of skills and things. Mercury can deal with interpretation. It can get into, there's even acts of certain divining aspects, which I think is even something that'll be very interesting to explore in this place there. But those are going to be just some very base things when we're just thinking about doing something very mercurial, thinking about Mercury. Now, when we talk about Scorpio, Scorpio is traditionally the domicile of Mars. And so it's going to be one of the solid signs or one of the fixed signs, and it is considered a feminine sign. So the feminine signs were thought to bring things to rest. You know, not necessarily a. It was always said to be like a passive, but it's more so bring things to rest as opposed to when the active signs kind of bring things to life. They bring things, put things to action. When we're thinking about the fire and the water and the air signs, so there's that nature of Scorpio. But the fixed signs, there is that always that consistency. You think of things that are maybe slow to start but are long lasting with the fixed signs and are hard to do. And we're talking about in aspects of the mind, so you could think about that even like a very fixed, concentrated mind when we're talking about with Mercury in Scorpio, a sort of intense focus that is have maybe even that have it with that martial quality. How that's gonna be Mercury being in Mars's sign can even enliven the mind. You know, have the one where it can lead to. So those are some things to think about with Scorpio, how that's going to be applying there, how the condition of Mars and how Mars is witnessing Mercury is going to play a big factor into this. And then when we think about the third place, this some of the topics that it dealt with were going to be primarily like siblings. It could deal with like your relatives and sort of like closer like maybe grandparents. It can get into like uncles, cousins, you know, those things along those lines. Friends was a topic that was covered in the third place. Travel, especially travel abroad. I'm pulling from like balance text from like the ancient astrology, but just travel in general could be something that comes into this idea of your neighborhood where you happen to live. That could be that could be the community can deal with the third house. I think about education, things that you want to learn, that you want to master, become. And there's even a mystical side with the third house. It was known as the house of the goddess in the ancient astrology. So when you're working with this themes, a couple things to consider when you work with this placement. One, you would have a Virgo rising by whole sign, and you're going to want to look to Mars because Mars is going to be responsible for this place in the eighth place, which deals with like topics of death. It can be benefits from the deceased, so like wills and things like that. It can get into law, sickness. It was known as the idle place. So those are some themes that the eighth place covers. And then Mercury is going to be responsible for in be responsible for your first place, which is the helm, the steering wheel of the chart, your life force, where the ascendant lives, the body, the breath, just anything that your will, in a sense, you could think of the first house. And then the 10th house, the 10th place is the other place that Mercury is going to rule, or be responsible for, and that is the place that deals with topics of like your occupation. So two angular houses going to deal with, it's the idea of praxis, the thing of all the actions that you do. That's going to be the 10th house things, but it can deal more specifically with like what you want to accomplish, the rank that you want to receive, what you consider a success, your occupation. It can get into marriage. Children can be another thing with the 10th house. Innovations in business, change, how you change and how people see that public change. Those are going to be some 10th house topics that Mercury is responsible for. Now, some things that I would talk about with this person to try to kind of make some sense of this position is maybe thinking about how, one, maybe if you happen to have siblings, thinking about how that early life maybe influenced the choices that you may have made, the different maybe occupations that you want to do, the certain interests that maybe you had. Maybe have a sibling who happened to be a musician. I'm just thinking of some mercurial things. Maybe they happen to deal with like doctors. Maybe they happen to be teachers, and that was a big influence. Maybe kind of big influence there, wanting to follow in their footsteps, or maybe even vice versa. With Mercury dealing with younger siblings, maybe you're the older one in this position, and maybe you're kind of setting the precedent. You kind of being that person that's doing the thing that's maybe inspiring. Maybe have something to do where maybe you were one that was guiding like your sibling or your relatives, possibly maybe your big influence with like your cousins, your, or that might even be something too. Maybe you happen to do some work with your siblings, or maybe happen to do something with your relatives. Maybe they had a business that they happen to do, and just maybe kind of worked you into that. So that could be something that works. And even too, let's say with like friends, that could be maybe you happen to come across friends from maybe different walks of life, with maybe who as they kind of grow up different, they go into different careers, maybe go into different places and things like that, accomplishing different things. Some people become parents, some people become this, some people becoming that, and seeing how that there's a real understanding with how that, I think that especially that sort of environment growing up, I think about those early sort of things, how that shaped who you are now, maybe even the places that you've traveled to, how that's maybe even inspired the things that you've wanted to do. Maybe you traveled to another country and learned about occupations that you never heard of. Maybe you saw goat herders and like that's the one. Would have never saw that in the place you were at, but now you've been inspired. So that's just a silly example. But maybe there's something with travel that you happen to do. This could be either as maybe as a pilot, maybe as a captain, maybe as someone in some sort of authority. The third house can deal with and I'm thinking pulling from like some topics from balance for the significators for the third house, being someone who is an authority of that, whether you're like a principal musician, whether you're the head of the hospital, whether you're the head of the school, the head builder, whatever that is, someone maybe an orator. That could be another mercurial thing that comes into the mix, something that involves you doing a lot of speaking. Maybe you do something where you travel, maybe something in politics, something in like the government, things along those lines, public service, civil service, things along those lines. Those could be some things that you could potentially even see kind of coming up with this placement. What else would I think about with this one? I could even see some sort of like when we get into that mystical side of it with the third house, or the third place being the house of the goddess. There was this idea of divine rights, and so getting maybe into those sort of like practices of prayer, of meditation, to get guidance for where is one supposed to go. You could find that maybe getting guides from some sort of like guides from your dreams. That was a big thing with the third place. I was initiated with that. The dream space was associated. So I would pay attention to that dream space, that imaginative space, how that looks, what is your relationship with that. That could be another big thing that plays very heavily in what you do, how you see yourself, who you want to become, what you want to accomplish. Because with Mercury there, it really is there's innumerable options. It's just a matter of interest in what you want to learn. But that's another one too I would explore again, if I didn't mention that, how the education process looked for you. Were you someone who grew up in like public school? Was it more kind of private school? Were you homeschooled? Do you find yourself doing a lot of like self-study? That could be something. I think that would be a really great one for Mercury. But again, you have to see if there are any challenges in that. Maybe there were some kind of arguments with siblings, or maybe even relatives, and let's say like inheritances and things. That could be something that's going on with Mars that's happening. Maybe Mars isn't able to view Mercury for some reason. It's like averse to Mercury, or maybe there's a hard aspect from Mars or from Saturn. That may be something that could indicate that, even so that's even. And if there's something where that's a lot that's going on, then maybe there's a more positive stuff the benefics may be witnessing that and bringing in their testimony. So that's something to consider as well. But I generally I like this. I like this placement for what it could accomplish. Again, I could see a good sort of focus that could comes with that. But again, it's all going to come down to the placement of Mercury, whether Mercury is even under the beams of the sun or not, whether it's direct or retrograde. There are a number of factors that you gotta contribute to that as well. But that would be a very kind of base kind of coverage of what I would do for this play and kind of talk about with this placement. You definitely need the rest of the chart to get a clearer picture of how these things maybe come together. And if you have this placement or know someone who's working with this placement, down in the description box, let us know how this has showed up for you. What ways that maybe either you see like a siblings maybe coming into some place of authority, being in some kind of accomplished, or maybe have some relatives that may be in like some sort of accomplished position, something along those lines. So yeah, so that's something to please let us know how that showed up for. I think that's always a great way to compare notes and to see what are some likeness, what are some differences, and what are those indicators that are making those differences and things like that. Those could be really good notes for all of us to learn from with this. And if that's something where you want to navigate this placement a lot more closely, down in and then I say comment in the description box. You can't do that. Comment in the comment section if you can. You've got my computer and I need that back. but but if that's something where you want to work with these placements more personally and get a better idea of how to navigate your chart, down in the description box is a link to book a consultation with me. So definitely check that out. If you have any questions about the services that I provide, my email's down there as well. So feel free to ask any questions about those things. I have a couple of playlists for the Celestial News Monthly, which is just like a monthly show that I do, going over the astrology of that month. And then I have the Lunar Shenanigans, which goes over it's a weekly show that goes over the astrology that includes the moon as well, with the other celestial other planets. So that's for you. And then if you see other videos that are other placements that you want to have on there that I haven't listed yet, please let me know and I will add those to the queue. I'm working through the queue right now. So I got this one and then I have one more. And then it's back to just rolling dice until someone makes a request. So, so let me know if that's something that you want, if there's a certain video that you want to see, or if there's even one that you want me to elaborate further on. I got a little project that I'll be announcing later on that will work. That's going to be, I think, a really neat one that I'm going to have for Patreons. But I think that's all I got for you. So until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one. Later.